What is up, everyone? Good morning on this New Year's Day of 2023, the first day of the year. So I decided to jump on and do this podcast. I always say this sometimes, especially when it's going to be kind of ad lib. This will be a short one. I say that, we'll see. Hopefully it is a little bit short. But a couple of things I wanted to start with. One is I'm coming off of a 2-week vacation where I took a break from my day job and really just focused on some me time with my wife. And the past week I've had all my sons here and my daughter-in-law and maybe some future daughter-in-laws and my 2-year-old grandson, which ironically it's first thing in the morning. And so you might hear a little bit of that crying in the background, but it's wonderful. But you know, I wanted to kind of just step away because we are, day one of this brand new year, and something hit me a couple days ago. I've always had this weird kind of concept and approach about the new year, and specifically, it's like, well, what difference does it make? It's just a new day, right? But something hit me, a couple days ago, and maybe it was because I had a chance to kind of just decompress from everything. But for whatever reason, the word belief kind of popped in my mind. And so I kind of want to take us on our journey today. We're going to go through this and talk about belief. And I kind of want to just share where I was coming from in my perspective, especially as we enter into this new year. So thanks for being here. I appreciate you. And join me on this journey. We're going to talk about belief on this first day of 2023. I'm your host, Eli Albalos, and this is Eli's Echo. So, as we're kicking off into this thing, a couple things. One, it's been a great vacation. I think I decided, hey, let me step away from work and let me actually just take literal vacation days and not do anything that's my main job related, and just focus on some me time and us time with my wife. And it's been really, really great. Like, unfortunately I have to go back to work in 2 days. And so it's like, I keep counting the minutes now. Unfortunately, that's where I'm at. But it's been interesting because there's been so much going on, and this year has been hectic. I'm sorry, not even this year. Sorry. Look at that. There I am reverting back to 2022. Last year was hectic. And quite emotional roller coaster, lost loved ones, challenges at work, challenges at my school, challenges in relationship. And it was, challenging to work. I'm kicking off a couple businesses. It was rough. Last year was a rough year. And I'm sure, we could all relate. When we all look back, there's always these highlights, right? But I think majority of people you're going to talk to are going to be like, oh man, I'm so excited that we're over this next year. But it's kind of how I felt. And it was really fun this past 2 weeks, just decompressing. As I mentioned, when I started this off, my sons are here visiting, and I have one daughter-in-law and maybe potential daughter-in-laws and a grandson. And, my wife and I were really looking forward to having them here, and they've been with us going on 7 days now. Now, I'll touch on this a little bit because it's just, again, ironic as I share kind of my life experiences on this podcast. My family did get impacted by the Southwest airline kerfuffle. And so, we should have had many of our family members here for 9 days. And unfortunately, a lot of them are only here for 7 because we had to do the shuffle flights around. And there was some emotional time, I gotta tell you. But even through like the heartache of having to deal with this Southwest impact to our family time, my wife and I were really good about being gracious and going, look, we're not the only ones that are affected by this. Our sons were having to go back and forth to airports. They were dealing with the crowds, and I'm sure there were family members out there, including maybe some of the Southwest employees that were just also stuck. And so who are we to be the ones to like just complain and blame and point fingers at Southwest of how you should have done better? So I think I'll just share that. Like we were impacted. And so, I've always had my opinion of Southwest, and I don't use my podcast as a pedestal to push my agenda. So I'm not going to go into that. But needless to say, I'll be very, leery, I guess, next time I decide to book on Southwest. So to all those that might have impacted my condolences, and hopefully you're able to make your travels and potentially, get back with family. But And we did. My sons came in and we got 7 days instead of 9 to 10 days with a lot of them. But sometimes kind of theory is it's not about the quantity, right? It's the quality. So what, lose a couple days. We've had an amazing visit. Now, if you can hear my grandson in the background, if he picks up the mic here, he might have a different opinion of how he feels right now. It's first thing in the morning. But anyway, so it was an interesting way to end the year, right? On that holiday travel kerfuffle with Southwest. But, I was thinking, a couple days ago, especially when we're reminiscing about the year, I'm sitting around, with my family and we're having dinners and just talking about, man, we're just done. Like we're done. We're done with 22. Let's get out of here. It's interesting because in my mind, I've always had this approach to the new year. It's like, well, it's just another day. Right. And like, you get folks that want to do their New Year's resolutions and, kind of use that beginning of the year as a restart. Right. When I was a member at what I call global gyms, just generic gyms, Gold's Gym, 24 Hour Fitness, Planet Fitness, I think is out there now. I used to call them holiday heroes, where, it's like the beginning of the year. That's it. Get those people that make those New Year's resolutions. That's it. This is the year. This is my year. I'm going to take control of my health. And we all do it. Like we all do it. I'm just very consistent in the gym. So it's funny because when I was going to these major gyms, and I'm sure maybe you all are experiencing it, that January, February time, maybe mid-February, you get this spike in membership, which is fantastic. I'm glad that people get that drive. But I call them holiday heroes because they don't last, right? And they don't. And so that's kind of been my approach to New Year's resolutions is, people, make these resolutions like, oh, this is my year, which is great. Like I'm glad that people have that motivation, but it's interesting that people use that beginning of the year as the time to make that change and make that commitment. And so I got to thinking, especially when I was talking, to my family, and then it kind of hit me. I'm like, well, and then I've never thought there was anything wrong with it, but I always just felt like it was just this cyclical thing. But then it hit me, I'm like, well, duh, it is cyclical, right? And I think is because, we have this calendar year that follows the seasons, and beginning of each year is the beginning of new obligations for that year. So that in of itself, if you're looking at this timeline of how we lead our lives, as members of society, well, yeah, there is a cycle. So why not have resolutions that marry up to that cycle, right? That January 1 cycle for the next year. And so I'm like, okay, there's nothing that wrong with it. And then I don't know if it was a TikTok reel I watched, but then a word stuck out to me. I was watching this TikTok, and we've had some late nights, and so it was really neat just being with family in the downtime. We're like resting and taking naps because we have a 2-year-old. And so but I was, I don't know if this put me into this deep, mental state where I started thinking about stuff, but the word belief popped in my mind. And I saw this TikTok and it kind of just triggered something for me. And specifically I think and I'll sum it up because I really can't remember because I really kind of went off on my own tangent with that word. But I think it was kind of this motivational speaker. Obviously, because of the work that I do, especially my podcast, my social media manager, my feed is filled with these kind of motivational talks and stuff. But this person was talking about belief, and it talked about their drive is inspired because they have others that believe in them. And I'm like, interesting. Like, that's an interesting approach to our day-to-day grind, right? Like I'm knee deep in so many things going on, and some days I'm just super stressed. But when I put that lens of belief on, like a pair of glasses, right? Put this lens of belief on, I'm like, I get it. There are so many people in my circle of influence that believe I can do what I say I'm going to do. And even when I don't feel like I can, or even when I don't feel like I'm having the best day and I'm up against these obstacles, there's that power of belief. And, and my family members, and I met with a lot of them over this holiday, are motivation for me, right? Especially my dissertation right now is really top of mind. I'm in the hardest part of the dissertation writing process. And trust me, it takes a lot of motivation to get going. But like I got this cup for Christmas, and it's for my daughter-in-law, and it's just this coffee mug, and it says, it's doctor, actually. I'm like, oh my gosh. And like the part of me is like, oh my gosh, I'm super stressed. Like I'm not even a doctor yet. Like I have all these things to do. But then when I looked at and put it in the framework of belief, I'm like no, like my daughter-in-law, by giving me this innocuous cup, this inanimate object that talks about, it's doctor, actually, right? Like, I'm like, that is my family's way of expressing their belief in my capabilities and what I'm doing. So I'm like, there's power there. That's super, super powerful. So then as I was thinking about these New Year's resolutions, like that's external belief based on that circle of influence of people saying, basically, I do believe in you. You're going to make it. That's my motivation. That's my fuel. But then if I take it and I flip that coin and look at it from internal belief, right? So there's an external influence. Now what about this internal belief, right? You can look at it like extrinsic and intrinsic motivation. I haven't even got into any of that this year. I will, because my book is coming out, and a big section of my book is based on this extrinsic and intrinsic motivation, basically external, internal reward. Separate than belief, but there is still this influence is the point. So whether or not I'm influenced because of the external support and belief that others have in me, so that's my drive, and or it's internal and purely based on my own engine, if you will. If I look at it from the internal perspective of belief, that's where these New Year's resolutions come into play. Like that's the ticket, right? Like everyone, January 1 is thinking about what this next year is going to bring, is thinking about what those New Year's resolutions are because of that internal belief. And I'm like, okay, like I get it. We have this cycle that we all live in society that leads me to January 1 wanting to make these commitments in the way of resolutions, because I have this belief that I'm going to take control and make this year different. In that sense, I was like, okay, I get New Year's resolutions now. Now, again, sometimes people don't keep them. That's a whole different maybe podcast about goal setting. But for me, you know, I wasn't even going to do a podcast, right? So again, as I'm kind of going down this, you know, trying to corral all these thoughts I'm having, you know, when I thought about that belief perspective, internal and external, even today, like I wasn't going to do a podcast because I wanted to take 2 full weeks off. But when I'm thinking things, and when I look at things from the perspective of belief, my family believes I can do this and is fully supporting and has listened to my podcast, provided me great comments. I have, you know, some followers that are leaving great comments. So their belief in me inspires me to produce. Because trust me, like in full transparency, last night I had some food poisoning. I had food coming out both ends. Like, I'm not trying to gross anybody out, but like I was in bad shape last night. Not even because I was drinking. It was just a mixture of foods just didn't sit well with me. And I paid the price. So I'm not feeling 100% right now. But that doesn't matter. It's that belief that got me to this microphone today. Like I have all my family members in the house today. And they're not waiting for me. It's not like they're waiting around. But like, you know, we're doing our morning routine and my grandson's up. But I felt like, regardless of how I feel, regardless of some of my family members being downstairs, I needed to get to the mic today. Because like it or not, now that I've committed down this podcast route, I do have followers. Those of you listening, I appreciate you. I really, really do. So your belief in coming back and listening to my content, That's my external motivation to keep going. The internal motivation is because, quite frankly, there are things that are just top of mind. Like I feel like there are experiences I have and comments and anecdotal stories I have based on activity in leadership, based on activity on motivation, from looking from the perspective of using my experience, using my education, just to help others, right? Just to help others in these hurdles. Like this week, when I was, last week, when we were going through this whole Southwest thing, I was talking to my wife and I was reading up a bunch of articles on Southwest. I'm like, man, you hear different stories and no one knows the truth, right? We really don't know what's happening out there, but it seemed like there was some semblance of truth around maybe how the company managed its employees, but then also, so that's internal human resource personnel aspect. And then you have this technical perspective is what we're hearing about, like the scheduling and technical issues. And so as I'm looking through this, I'm like, man, wouldn't it be neat that if based on my belief through this podcast and sharing information about, leadership, motivation, I'm starting this business consulting, the whole purpose is if companies like a Southwest are struggling to reach their employees, I feel like I can help. And now I know it kind of sounds grandiose, great, Eli Zacko, now he's going to go and solve Southwest problems. That's not the point. The point being is you have company A that is struggling and it has a downstream effect to its consumers. Well, that's where I want to come in with, my thoughts, my perspective, my education, my training through our company to help others. That's that belief, right? That's that full circle belief, Southwest or not. I'm not saying I can solve Southwest problems, but what I am saying is that I think that I can help others. And who those others are, I don't know. Be it small companies. I do some minor consulting for some local businesses here in town where I've helped them overcome some obstacles and bring to the table some solutions. And even in my mentoring programs that I have, I've mentored others and helped them overcome obstacles with solutions. So there's that belief that I'm not saying it can affect everybody. Like my podcasts, my mentorship programs, my trainings, yeah, it might fall sometimes on deaf ears, and that's okay. But the goal is, if I do get these followers and believe and folks that believe in what I produce, and at the root, I believe in what I'm saying and I'm sincere in my desire to help others, that's the difference. That's why I'm here today on January 1st, when I didn't get much sleep and my stomach is still not the greatest. But it's interesting is the minute I started talking, I kind of forgot about the pain, right? You kind of put that stuff aside because I'm here for you all, as listeners, as followers. So I don't know. Hopefully we didn't get too existential today, but yeah, that was it. I think is embrace your beliefs. I guess ultimately is the whole purpose of today's podcast. Right? I hesitate to call things resolutions, New Year's resolutions, because unfortunately I feel like sometimes, majority of time, quite honestly, resolutions are made and broken, right? So instead, if you're looking at reinventing yourself, recreating yourself, I would say is believe in you. I think that it really is a lot of power when we look at things from belief, be it internal, external motivation. If I deliver something purely because someone else believes in me, then use that. If I deliver something purely based on the internal drive that I have because I want to get a message, I want to push a business, I want to push a product, embrace that and build your roadmap for 2023 based off of your belief. Again, is it maybe you're a person that wants to travel. Maybe it's a person that really just wants to explore a different job. Maybe you just want to get a hold of your debt because you just want to get out from, this crushing force of, the day-to-day grind because you can't get a hold of your debt. whatever it is. Maybe it's a relationship, maybe it's a job, business, I don't care. But as you're looking at your roadmap for 2023, don't make a checklist of all these are resolutions. I'm going to go to the gym 3 days a week for the rest of the year. Well, great. I'd be interested to take a poll to figure out like how many people do that kind of resolution and actually stick to it, right? That's a resolution made to be broken, right? Instead, maybe that type of belief in yourself and that resolution becomes, I'm going to get a handle on my health. And then you have sub activities that contribute to that major. Maybe it is working out. Maybe it's getting your blood panel. Maybe it's just going to the doctor regularly. Maybe it's just eating better. Maybe it's just taking a daily walk. All those things contribute to your daily health that don't necessarily have to be a check the box, I went to the gym today. Right? So look at what you want to achieve for that roadmap and believe, first of all, that you can attain it. Because for the most part, and I've talked about this before, you will be able to do nearly everything you put your mind to. I say nearly everything. There are limits. There really are. I won't get into it today. But if you're looking at a 2023 roadmap for yourself, more than likely, you're going to create things that are attainable, right? And even if you have a really, really stretch activity you want to reach to, go for it, right? Maybe it's, I want to run 10 marathons this year and you never train for a marathon. Well, put it down, right? Like if you believe you can do it, great, train for it, hit it. Because maybe by putting down 10 marathons, you're able to hit 3 this year. And last year you had 0. That's huge progress, right? You're still aiming for the star because you believe you can attain it versus like, oh, I'm going to do 1. And then you do your 1. Well, then what? So anyway, believe in yourself, create that roadmap of what you feel you can attain. And maybe look at it from the perspective of how much of this do I believe I can do based on my own internal motivation? And how much of this am I depending on others? Because I started thinking about that. Like I'm at a point where a couple of my businesses like I'm just struggling, right? It's just that time of year, lots of things going on. But this week I had a whole different perspective. Like, no, I got the support network. People believe I can do this. And based on some of my experience and just based on recent activities, I believe I can do it too. So no, I'm going to commit. But it wasn't until I really started looking at what does belief mean to me and how does that affect me and how does that affect my outcome? When I'm looking at this whole new year, I'm like, no, there's something to this. There's really something to this. So I don't know. Hopefully, and if some of this made sense, like I said, it wasn't scripted. It wasn't planned. It was just kind of this ad lib of, I just had this inspiration because it really changed my perspective this past week when I started thinking about belief. So hopefully that made sense for you. Hopefully there's a nugget that you can take away. Ultimately, for the purpose of today's podcast, it's New Year's Day. Happy New Year, everyone. And I really do believe, that folks can make a difference in this world. And so believe in yourself. If you need assistance, reach out to me. I'll be in your corner. I'll help you out. This year is the first day. Today is the first day of a brand new year. I say this every time lately, and I'm going to continue saying it. Reach out to a loved one. You never know who might need to hear from you. Be it a text message. Today's a holiday, fantastic day to reach out to others. But do more than just send that text, that little Happy New Year GIF. I think it does mean a lot, but I think hearing someone's voice means even more. So reach out to someone, call them, sit down, have lunch with someone. Maybe, with that loved one that you're going to reach out to, tell them you love them and share your belief. Maybe you believe in them and they've been struggling. Like maybe that is the difference you need to make today, is reaching out to others and sharing your belief in them, empowering them to continue, empowering them to overcome obstacles in their life. And whatever that obstacle might be, job, work, substance abuse, relationship, loneliness, be there for them. Make that this year where you're constantly trying to reach out to those loved ones, tell them you love them, believe in them, show that you believe in them, and ultimately believe in yourself. That's it for today. I appreciate you being here. I love the support. I really am here for others. And so use all the resources that you have at your disposal within your circle of influence, including me. Reach out. I have links to different websites, different content, a multitude of ways to reach out to me. But if you need someone in your corner, don't hesitate to reach out. So that's it. Happy New Year, everyone. I appreciate you being here. I'm your host, Eli Albalos, and this is Eli's Echo. Thank you.